Tesham Purashtad Abhavan Aryavarte Nripa Pancha Vingshati Paschakcha Trayo Madhye Pare Niyataha. Of the 100 sons, 25 became kings in the western side of Aryavarta, a place between the Himalaya and the Vindhya mountains. Another 25 sons became kings in the east of Aryavarta, and the 3 principal sons became kings in the middle. The other sons became kings in various other parts. That was verse 5. Verse 6 is Sa Ekadash Taka Shradhe Ikshva Kushutam Adishat Mangshang Aniyatam Medyam Vikshushe Gachamam Chiram. During the months of January, February, and March, oblations offered to the forefathers are called Ashtaka Shraddha. The Shraddha ceremony is held during the dark fortnight of the month. When Maharaj Ikshvaku was performing his oblations in this ceremony, he ordered his son Vikushi to immediately go to the forest to bring some pure flesh. Is that Leela here in Gainesville? Oh my goodness gracious, good to see you, girl. All right, next verse, verse 7. Tateti sa vanam gativa rigan hatva kriyartam hanam shranto bubik shito vira shasham shadad apasmitri. Thereafter, Ikshvaku's son Vikushi went to the forest and killed many animals suitable for being offered as oblations. But when fatigued and hungry, he became forgetful and ate a rabbit he had killed. That's very interesting. Purport: it is evident that Kshatriyas killed animals in the forest because the flesh of the animals was suitable to be offered at a particular type of yajna. Offering oblations to the forefathers in the ceremony known as Shraddha is also a kind of yajna. In this yajna, flesh obtained from the forest by hunting could be offered. However, in the present age, Kali Yuga, this kind of offering is forbidden. Quoting from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Ashvamedham Gavalambam Sanyasam Palapaitrikam Devarena Sutopatim Kalau Pancha Vivarjayet. In this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden. They are the offering of a horse in sacrifice, the offering of a cow in sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyas, the offering of oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting children in his brother's wife. The word palapakritim refers to an offering of flesh in oblations to the forefathers. Formerly, such an offering was allowed, but in this age, it is forbidden. In this age, Kali Yuga, everyone is expert in hunting animals. But most of the people are Sudras, not Kshatriyas. According to Vedic injunctions, however, only Kshatriyas are allowed to hunt, whereas Sudras are allowed to eat flesh after offering goats or other insignificant animals before the deity of goddess Kali or similar demigods. On the whole, meat eating is not completely forbidden. A particular class of men is allowed to eat meat according to various circumstances and injunctions. As far as eating beef is concerned, however, it is strictly prohibited for everyone. Thus, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna personally speaks of Gorakshyam, cow protection. Meat eaters, according to their different positions, and directions of Shastra, are allowed to eat flesh, but never the flesh of cows. Cows must be given all protection. Om Jnana Timirandasya Ganangana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Gena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karati Vachalam Pangam Langayate Krim Tatkripadam Hang Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pashyutadi Shatarne. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So I want to thank everyone for joining this morning for this reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, so glorious. What I'm going to do is go through some of the purport, unpack some of the points. Prabhupada always puts so many salient points in each purport, a multitude of points, but there's always an underlying essence. So we'll unpack some of the points and then get to the essence. So Prabhupada states, it is evident that Kshatriyas killed animals in the forest because the flesh of animals was suitable to be offered at a particular type of yajna. Offering oblations to the forefathers in the ceremony, known as Shraddha, is also a kind of yajna. And this yajna, flesh obtained from the forest by hunting, could be offered. So previous ages, the Kshatriyas we're talking about very, very powerful men. And Kshatriya means to hurt and to protect. Kshat means to protect. It also means to hurt. So the Kshatriyas had to be, you could say, that spirit of that martial spirit. They had to be kind of burned in the fire of violence, really. So to do that, because to kill people is not for the faint of heart, and the Kshatriya had to be very strong in spirit and very strong in body and mind to enact his duty of protecting the kingdom and ultimately protecting the Brahmins, the king, and the cows. So to do that, it was enjoined in the Vedic literatures that Kshatriyas were allowed this art of killing. So to kill, obviously, they went to the forest and they would kill animals that were in many ways causing a disturbance to the residents of the forest. Lions, tigers, and bears, oh my. So and this way, and they didn't do it with guns, sitting in, like with camouflage and waiting to kill an innocent deer that, is not hurting anyone. But, they would kill ferocious beasts and sometimes lesser animals. But the beauty is, as it's stated here, first of all, sometimes they'd kill animals with their bare hands. So they had to develop this very intense bodily, physical, and mental strength. But the idea is that the animals were not just eaten for their sense gratification, but as it's stated here, they were offered in yajna. And what does that mean? By that yajna, the soul of that animal was elevated in its next lifetime to a higher birth. That's the beauty of the Vedic civilization. Even though Kshatriyas were engaged in killing the animals were offered as oblations, and they were given a higher birth. So it's just such a perfect system. However, in this age, Prabhupada goes on, Kali Yuga, this kind of offering is forbidden. Why? We'll see. Quoting from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu states, in Kali, 5 types of acts are forbidden: the offering of a horse in sacrifice and offering of a cow in sacrifice. Why? Because people in the age of Kali, first of all, there's no qualified Brahmins that have the spiritual Shakti to do this type of yajna where they're by their Shakti, by the power of the Vedic mantras, by the power invested in the mantras and their spiritual purity, they would be the ones that would be directing the soul of the animal to a higher birth. Nobody's qualified to do that this age. So it is outlawed because people will just engage in the art of taking the flesh for themselves. And we see that's rampant in human society. So that is outlawed. What else is outlawed? We've got many things. Goes on, the offering of oblations, the acceptance of the order of sannyas. We can see, and even in the Krishna consciousness movement, that it's very difficult for men to maintain sannyas. I can't remember the last time someone took sannyas, but it's a rare thing. Initially, in Prabhupada's mission, Prabhupada gave sannyas to many, many young men for the sake of spreading this mission everywhere. It was time, place, and circumstance. It was a necessary, because Prabhupada wanted these men to travel and preach and not be encumbered by family life. And it worked for a time being, and it's still working. But we see that due to the influence of Kali and the influence of the senses, our conditioning is such that it's very difficult for people to maintain sannyas. Still, it is done, but it's very rare. And then also forbidden the begetting of children in the brother's wife. Okay, well, that's kind of a no-brainer. We, due to the tendency for sense gratification, we're not going to be able to do that in a pure mood. And the brother, it's going to disturb the whole family. We've seen that in the whole mode of people trying to take on more than one wife. Let's face it, it really doesn't work in this age, because people their minds are scattered and their minds are always disturbed. It's better to keep it very simple. So these things are forbidden. So Prabhupada goes on, and he says that in Kali Yuga, everyone is expert in hunting animals, but most of them are sudras. So we see this phenomenon. So much rampant animal slaughter. I mean, there's the whole culture of hunting is so prevalent, and they just hunt these poor, innocent creatures. They're not kshatriyas, they're not protectors. I mean, in one sense, it's better that they go and hunt an animal and eat it than buy it in the store. It's a little bit more, I wouldn't say elevated, but it's less sinful. But nonetheless, they're not offering these animals in sacrifice. So it's very, very sinful. And at the end, Prabhupada goes on to say that meat eaters, according to their different positions, they're directed by Shastra. They're allowed to eat flesh, but never the flesh of cows. So we see in the Vedic system that the Sudras, they could offer the flesh of a goat to goddess Kali on a dark moon night, and they'd have to say incantations into the ear of the goat, saying, "Listen, I'm killing you, but you can kill me in your next lifetime." How does that sound? Anybody with any sanity will go, wait a second, I'm going to be slaughtered in my next lifetime. What's the point of all this? And again, that's the beauty of the Vedic system. You want to do this? Fine. But here's the result. But Prabhupada goes on to say that, but never the flesh of cows. Cows must be given all protection. So let's look at this. Let's analyze this essential point, this Goraksha, protection of the cows. It's so essential. I'm going to read some purports by Srila Prabhupada, which are so illuminating, which tie animal slaughter, cow protection, to the very chaotic suffering condition of human society right now. And at the end of this, I want to open this up for discussion. So Prabhupada says the material world is in itself a place always full of anxieties. And by encouraging animal slaughter, the whole atmosphere becomes polluted more and more by war, pestilence, famine, and many other unwanted calamities. Just like now we have this pandemic. I call it the pandemic, as many people do. There's a whole agenda behind it. Let's not go there. But we could even zoom out from 50,000 feet and see that this pandemic, it's a plandemic in the sense that there's a collective karma that the world is experiencing. Because nothing happens without the will of the Lord. Not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. So in many ways, we can tie any type of massive global suffering to this unwanted, this massive suffering that is being inflicted upon innocent animals and innocent children as well. Prabhupada goes on in another purport. To be nonviolent to human beings and to be a killer or enemy of poor animals is Satan's philosophy. It's very interesting. Prabhupada uses is Satan's philosophy. To be kind to animals, to be kind to humans, just like the Christians, let's treat others as you would want to be treated, but let's slit the throat of the poor animals. No, doesn't work like that. Sorry. This is Satan's philosophy. So while professing Christianity, just like Prabhupada, so many times he met with Christians, And he would just tell them outright, you're not a Christian. Do you eat meat? Jesus said, thou shalt not kill. It didn't say thou shalt not murder. Prabhupada was right up in their face. But because he was coming from a place of compassion, not ego, most times they could take it. But this is it. Again, Prabhupada says, to be nonviolent to humans, be a killer, the enemy of to be a killer or enemy of the poor animals is Satan's philosophy. In this age, there's enmity toward poor animals, and therefore the poor creatures are always anxious. Just think, Prabhupada's so compassionate. The reaction of the poor animals is being forced on human society. The reaction of the poor animals is being forced on human society. Their suffering is coming back as pestilence, war, famine, a pandemic, whatever it may be. And therefore, there is always the strain of cold or hot war between men, individually, collectively, and nationally. So we can see how malefic this egregious, this tendency to commit violence towards other living beings is. Prabhupada goes on, in the stage of Kali, the propensity for mercy is almost nil. Consequently, there is always fighting and wars between men and nations. Men do not understand that because they unrestrictedly kill so many animals, they must also be slaughtered like animals in big wars. That's it. This is very much evident in Western countries. In the West, slaughterhouses are maintained without restriction, and therefore every 5th or 10th year there is a big war in which countless people are slaughtered, even more cruelly than animals. If anybody's ever has any friends that have been in a war, it's, people that come back from war, they're damaged goods. They're scarred for life. They have major PTSD because they see some bad, as they say in French, some bad shit. Excuse my French. But they see some terrible stuff. And it scars them for life. So Prabhupada said, this is the reaction. They will suffer. They will suffer in a way, as Prabhupada says, countless are slaughtered even more cruelly than the animals. It's interesting. I was speaking to Gaur Sharan about, he's in Chennai right now. And in Chennai, they have the Nadi, there's a big library from the Nadi Shastra. The Nadi Shastra was it's very similar to the Bhrigu Samhita and the Bhrigu readings, where Parvati, wife of Lord Shiva, was concerned about the sufferings of the souls in Kali, the immense sufferings that individuals would have to go through in Kali Yuga. And so she questioned her husband, Lord Shiva, how do we kind of ameliorate the suffering of the souls in Kali Yuga? And so Lord Shiva explained, went on to talk about actually countless souls in Kali Yuga and each of their lives and how each of them they could perform certain activities that would rectify their karma. So this is transcribed by the sage Kaushika Rishi. It's written on palm leaves. So when I was in India last, I had this reading done. I'm not going to go into details, but because it's kind of a long, fascinating story. But I learned things, and again, as I was telling Gaur Sharan, I don't take this as absolute truth, but it's pieces of information that are helpful to get an understanding of one's life, one's destiny, one's karma, and ultimately the Vedic paradigm. But what I saw from that was that it talked about my previous life and my son's previous life, that any type of suffering that I'm experiencing in this life is directly correlated to how much pain I inflicted on others. Not necessarily even physical pain, emotional pain. How much I just caused pain by my immaturity or lack of emotional or spiritual aptitude, that I caused pain and suffering to other living beings. To that degree, I'm suffering in this lifetime. The correlation was stunning. So, and again, that's another story for another time because I can go into details. It's quite fascinating. But the point is that what to speak of slaughtering innocent animals, where you take animals and lift them up like cows and they're stunned and prodded and they're alive and their throat is slit and they're hanging and they're still alive, and it's just horrific. So what to speak of the suffering that's going to come to human society? So unfortunately, there's going to be collateral damage, and we may have to be part of that. So these are reactions. Oh, Prabhupada said, sometimes during war, some soldiers keep their enemies in concentration camps and kill them in very cruel ways, just like the slaughterhouse. These are, we can see that there's been these situations in history. There's a karmic aspect to it. However much we may want to be sentimental about it, there is a karmic aspect, and we really have to see that. These are reactions brought about by unrestricted animal killing in the slaughterhouse and by the hunters in the forest. Proud demoniac persons do not know the laws of nature and laws of God. Consequently, they unrestrictedly kill poor animals, not caring for them at all. So Krishna, let's look at Krishna. What is Krishna's job? Of course, Krishna doesn't have a job. He's God. But if he had a job, he's a cowherd boy. Namo Brahmanya Divaya Go Brahmanya Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. My Lord, you are the well-wisher of the cows and the Brahmins, and you are the well-wisher of the entire human society and the world. That's Krishna's job. He's just tending the cows. He's a cowherd boy. He gives he's Govind. He's giving pleasure to the cows. So dear to Krishna. So if we take the life of these beings, so much pain and suffering we're bringing upon society. Prabhupada said, Brahmins are symbols of spiritual education, and cows are the symbol of the most valuable food. These two living creatures, Brahmins and cows, they must be given all protection. That is real advancement of civilization. In modern society, spiritual knowledge is neglected, and the cow killing is encouraged. It is to be understood that human society is advancing in the wrong direction and clearing the path to its own condemnation. Civilization, which guides citizens to become animals in their next life, is certainly not a human civilization. Prabhupada goes on. So, and he says, this Krishna consciousness is to save humanity from this greatest danger. Okay, I'm going to read another thing. Less intelligent people underestimate the value of cow's milk. Let me read that again. Less intelligent people underestimate the value of cow's milk. So we do see that this vegan phenomena, of course, the mood of the vegan movement is to protect the animal and to eat very healthy. But according to Vedic culture, the cow is the most valuable food. Just like I see an Ayurvedic doctor, Leela and I and Jenny and some devotees were speaking the other day at the Bhaktivedanta Institute about this Ayurvedic doctor that I see, Dr. Teitelbaum. She has come from a long line of Vaidyas from Dr. Vaidya Mishra. Many, like Giriraj Swami is one of his main students for Ayurveda, for his protocols. But she talks about, and the Vedas talk about, how milk is such a valuable food that it takes, there's 7 different layers of coverings of the body. The skin, the fascia, the muscle, the bones, 7 different layers. And it takes when one eats ordinary foodstuffs, it takes about 30 days for those foodstuffs to go through all the systems of the body and nourish all the different 7 layers of coverings or tissues in the body, except for one food. And that food is warm or hot milk. Warm or hot milk will nourish all 7 layers of the body, all these tissues, within 24 hours. Just see how valuable. So we should not underestimate or be sentimentally swayed. Prabhupada was very well aware that the cows are mistreated. Still, he took milk because it's so valuable, because that milk is offered to the deity, and that cow that it came from becomes benefited. So we have to see things from a higher perspective and not get so drawn in by the kind of kind of trends of the day, although they're well intended, but we should see things through the eyes of Shastra. Cow's milk is also called gorasa, or the juice from the body of the cow. Milk is the most valuable form of gorasa, and from milk we can prepare many important and valuable foodstuffs for the upkeep of the human body. The killing of cows by human society is one of the grossest suicidal policies, and those who are anxious to cultivate the human spirit must turn their attention first toward the question of cow protection. So Prabhupada says here, those who are anxious to cultivate the human spirit, which is any sane, intelligent, progressive individual, must turn their attention first toward the question of cow protection. So here we go. I'd like to, at this point, I can go more. I have a lot more things to cover here, but I want to open it up here. This is really the essence, that human society will never be, there will never be peace and prosperity and spiritual advancement in human society unless there is Goraksha, unless the cows are protected. So I want to open it up for discussion. And my question to the devotees is, how can we educate the people in general about the immense importance of cow protection in this meat eaters world on one side and this kind of militant vegan world on the other side? So, yeah, I'd like to open that up for discussion. We have, it's difficult. It's a meat eaters world. And then there's the kind of the vegan movement, which is, very strong. And how can we really bring this to the forefront and educate people about these principles of protecting the cow for so the society can get off the suicidal path. So I'd like to, I'd like to open it up for discussion. Gorsharan, can you unmute people?
Yes, bro. They'll be able to unmute themselves. Actually, I made this.
So let's see. Let me get the gallery view here. So would anybody like to? Is that Rohini? Oh my goodness, Rohini, Hare Krishna.
Hi,
so, any? It's good to see you, Rohini. So I would like to open this up and get your input on how this challenge in front of us, how we can educate the general populace into these principles. Would anybody like to share? Please.
I actually have another question that I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if I should wait
Sure, go ahead.
till someone answers or just ask it now.
Okay, go ahead.
So you were speaking about or trying to explain that the karmic reactions and how Prabhupada speaks, that because we are slaughtering animals so freely, there's so many wars, and because we are putting animals in their own concentration or work camps, that's what's going to happen to people, which already did happen. And I especially coming from a background who act of a person who actually celebrates Yom Kippur and all the celebrations, or memorials of Jewish history, it's how are we to teach it to others without actually seeming insensitive or being offensive to others? Because I feel like it can be very difficult to just speak on this topic of karmic reactions, or how this is actually earned in previous lives, and just come up to whatever ethnic group and just say, well, you earned this.
That's a great question, Prabhu. Thank you. I want to introduce you guys to my cat. There's Brudgy. Say hi, Brudgy. So yeah, this is a very sensitive subject matter, Prabhu, and it has to be dealt with sensitivity, because look, I was raised Jewish, and I have distant relatives that went through that. At the same time, we have to, just like Prabhupada unabashedly spoke the truth. And Prabhupada didn't mince words. And Prabhupada was also diplomatic and sensitive, but he always stood by the Vedic paradigm. So I think that we have to it really depends on a person's level of what they can accept. Obviously, that any war and any situation where there's kind of mass genocide, there is a karmic element. It cannot be denied. And we cannot be too sentimental about it, but we should be sensitive in how we explain it. So I think we can explain it that it's just like there's lessons that can be learned, just like Viktor Frankl, who went through the concentration camps. He wrote this book, A Man's Search for Meaning. And he realized in the Nazi concentration camps that if he succumbed to that they're my oppressors and I'm the oppressed and I'm the victim, and this is like very extraordinary level of consciousness. But he realized for his own survival that he had to transcend that and actually hate the sin and not the sinner, and keep himself in a transcendental position of just the observer and see the soul and see God working. And so really, I think that the way that I would present it is that, in any position of suffering, there's lessons that we're meant to learn, however tragic that suffering is. And, a lot of people become atheists when they're confronted with the profound suffering of human society that people have to go through. But that suffering is created by us somehow or another in some previous situation. And we just have to accept that that's the laws of nature. It's not that God is cruel, but we have transgressed the laws of nature and created a situation. And sometimes, as Prabhupada says in this purport, that people are brought together in wars every 5, 10, 20 years, and there's a wholesale slaughter. That's a kind of a karmic retribution for the wholesale slaughter of animals or other cruelty. Just like now, we have like about 47 million abortions a year. So there's 47 million innocent babies that are slaughtered every year, and way more animals. Like, I think maybe even 1 billion animals are slaughtered a year. That's a lot of suffering. And then there's, human sex trafficking and torture and abuse of children and women, and young children and boys and girls and women. It's horrific what goes on in the world, even at the highest levels of society. So there has to be some kind of payback for that. And sometimes people are born, they have goodness in them, but in their previous life, they may have done something. That's why in the Vedic system, the capital punishment is allowed, is actually, if someone commits a murder, they should be immediately killed so they don't have to suffer in their next lifetime. Really quick story. Oh, I've got a fun story about that, but I'll save that because we're running out of time. So I would say just be sensitive about it, but speak the truth in a way that hopefully they can understand. Does that satisfy you, Prabhu?
Yes, thank you.
So anyone else, questions, or, how can we present this cow protection high philosophy to the polar influences in the world that we experience? Any other thoughts? Feel free to jump in.
There's a question in the chat, Prabhu.
Okay, let's see, in the chat. Let's see. I see. Okay, Hare Krishna, thank you for joining us. Okay, vegans cite that there is poor treatment of dairy cows using steroid force. Yeah, how should that be understood? Okay, this is a really good question. And of course there is, we have to address these things. Of course that the cows are being mistreated. So we should, if at all possible, have milk from ahimsa farms that really don't slaughter the cow. That's number one. We should seek that out, and that's available. There's, like here in Florida, you can get that type. There's devotee Adikarta, and he has his cows. There's other farms that have their cows. So if possible, that should be done. Sometimes it's not possible. Does that mean we shouldn't eat milk and offer milk to the deities? It's really a personal consideration, but we should, Prabhupada, he didn't make an issue of that. So my mood is, Prabhupada's the Acharya, follow the Acharya. Prabhupada was profoundly concerned about the suffering of the cows. Profoundly concerned. He's always talking about it, and he chastised the Christians. So how should we deal with that? I would say get him some milk. Do the best you can to avoid milk that comes from dairy, from places that slaughter the cow. My cat really wants affection. Go, Reggie. But it's a personal choice. But the ultimate issue is that the cow milk is beneficial for human society. Is that all right? Let's see. Vegan stand need to educate. Okay. Any other points, questions, comments, criticisms? I'm open. How do we preach? How do we present this in human society? Because it's so fundamental. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Feel free to just jump in because
Yes, my name is Andrea.
Andrea, Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining us.
I'm also in Gainesville, so it's interesting how many of us on this Bhakti Center in New York City call are in Gainesville.
Nice.
As to your question, it's something that I ask myself a lot in terms of like what's more important, are us getting milk or protecting the cows that are like in these concentration camps and this suffering and just being abused in so many different ways. Because of that, I choose to be vegan. And if in the future, I'm able to get a himsa milk, then that's different. It's just, like you said, I think it's a choice that all of us need to make. But in terms of as a movement, how we can influence vegans, as someone that moves in vegan circles, goes to like vegan potlucks and things like that before there was a pandemic. The only thing that I've found that influences people's hearts is example. Is being a good example, being someone who is showing that I am an aspiring devotee of Krishna, but I care so much about the cows that I make that sacrifice of not taking their milk, which comes from so much blood, and that I also do cow protection, that I support temples that keep cows safe, that take care of them, that I that do all this work, and then I invite them to go and visit these places that are sanctuaries for these cows and to meet them. I mean, I'm sure he would be okay in sharing, but like my husband, when we were together in the beginning, he wasn't a vegetarian, and I never forced it upon him. I just set an example of like, and I asked very kindly, like that in our home, that we never have meat. And that was something that he was fine with accepting. But I also said, anything you do outside, I'm not micromanaging you, and you're a grown person and I respect your decision. But I kept being that person of example. And also when I had the opportunity, we went to New Vrindavan together. And I introduced him to the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful cows there. And he then received their mercy. He met Usha, who is now like his favorite. He can't wait to go back and meet her again. And he received their mercy. And then I let the cows do their work, because it's not about me. It's about the cows doing it. And when people have that reciprocity with that living being, with that jiva, then a lot of times it does it on its own, in terms of people who are meat eaters. And then in terms of people who are militant vegans, again, it's that showing that I'm meeting them halfway. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but thank you for bringing up this topic.
Yeah, I am very impressed with what you just said. And I think that thank you, Andre. I think you're a really brilliant example of this point, how to really bring people around. And I immensely respect your decision to be vegan because of the reasons involved, and anyone's decision because of those reasons. And what you've shown is that you approach people, in this case it was your husband, in a non-judgmental way. You were accepting of his position. So that's first. If you don't accept a person's position, then you're never going to get to first base. They have to kind of feel that love and respect from us, that we accept them. They're just maybe poor fund of knowledge. So, and then what you said also is that you I think the salient point you made was you lead by example, that you showed them, okay, this is another way to live. And you showed them the farms, you showed them this is a place where cows are protected. And then he actually met the cow and then fell in love with Usha, such a beautiful name for a cow. And so I'm very touched by your realizations there, and I subscribe to them 100%. Thank you so much. I think that's the essence there, and that's the beauty of, I think the essence is having these communities where people can come and see, firsthand what it's like to live in this cow-protected environment, have milk from cows that are loved. It's like Prabhupada said, we would always talk about our new Vrindavan cows, because they know they're going to be slaughtered because they're loved. They give so much milk. They're, just like in Krishna's pastimes, the pasturing grounds were over flooded by the udders of the cows because they were so happy. And so I think you really touched on this. I'm so grateful that you brought these points up, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Do we have time for any more, Gaur-Sharan?
Yes, sir. No problem.
Any other points that anyone would like to bring up, please, or questions?
Madalila, you want to share something?
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu, for sharing on this. I just wanted to appreciate the point that you made about us understanding the difference between transgressing the laws of nature and having an angry God that punishes. Especially, a lot of us, our background is of a Christian background or some other tradition that heavily emphasizes that. And also when we're talking to people, there may be just a higher population of people who come from that background and may have that belief. And so it's a subtle point, but really interesting because, or important, I should say, because it puts the responsibility on us rather than, God is punishing, it's us. And it is a sensitive topic, and the answer of karma doesn't completely answer all of these questions, but it does give us an opportunity to be compassionate for the ones who are suffering and also the transgressors, right? Because they are also creating their own karma, and it's really difficult to see people who commit acts that cause suffering, but it's difficult to see and yet necessary to see them with that same compassion, although we don't accept or agree with their actions. And it's something also Bhakti Tirtha Swami spoke about, they're also our brothers and sisters, and they're also suffering. And then also I liked what Andrea said about being the example, because one thing that as these things are so important to us, it's easy to become a little self-righteous about our choices and our changes that we've made. And people don't like to be, we can't connect with them if the first thing we tell them is you're absolutely wrong and you're just a bad person. So how we navigate these conversations with people, I just feel starts with us having deep compassion for them. Bhagavad Gita saying that the dog and the dog eater, to see them equally, and not have this internal energy of like, you're an awful person, and a lot of us have had the, grew up eating meat and things like that. So for us to be mindful of how we navigate these conversations, and that we can only be the example if we have the highest integrity and show the highest compassion. And we are works in progress, but we can't be vegetarians, and Srila Prabhupada talks about this. We can't be vegetarians or vegans and then be jerks. That doesn't help anyone, and people will not want to listen to us. And so I think that as a movement, we have a lot of work to do in that in that. Now, I'm not calling devotees jerks, but we have a lot of work to do as human beings, whether we're in the movement or not. But that's one way that we can, you know, set the example of how we behave, and not just in what we eat. So I was just appreciating those points. Thank you.
Leela, thank you so much. Really beautiful points. What I take from what you said is there was 2 points that you made. One was the kind of Judeo-Christian upbringing of an angry God that's going to punish you, and kind of balancing that with the Vedic understanding that, you know, it's just, there's laws of nature at work, that we're making these choices, and when you transgress the laws, there's a reaction. God is kind of out of the piece, like, hey, you know, it's your life, you know, I'm giving you free will, you do your thing, you know, what can I do? I just set it up, you know. And so I'll address that in a second. And the other point is this tendency for kind of, as you said, self-righteousness, and being kind of like the pompous spiritualist. I know the way, the truth, and the light, and you're just an ignorant fool. And yeah, that's got to go, you know. And that requires, and you know, initially there's a we've all experienced the kind of pure devotee syndrome, the fanaticism of coming to the path and kind of feeling like we know all the answers. But as they say, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So Trinadapi Suniche Natararapi Sahisnunani, that having a humble heart, really, that's our Siddha Pranali mantra. As Bhakti True Maharaj explained to me once, I thought it was so beautiful, that the mantra of feeling lower than the straw in the street, devoid of all sense of false prestige, being more tolerant than the tree, ready to offer all respects unto others, even people that we disagree with. You know, that's the mood that's going to really attract people, because that Krishna comes into our heart in that mood of humility. And when we approach people with that, it's a compassionate, loving spirit. Like I do Sankirtan, and on the weekends, so I'm meeting the public all day long. And when I'm talking to people, I'm just, in my mind, I'm just saying, I love you. And I'm trying to see Krishna in their heart, and just say, and people feel that. They don't know what they're feeling. And I'm trying to see Krishna in their heart and say, I love you. And it's kind of miraculous what happens in these exchanges. And it's not sentimental. It's based on knowledge. It's based on kind of seeing the indwelling soul, and that they've been suffering for many lifetimes, and seeing Krishna there also. But it's just kind of that approaching everyone we meet with that kind of compassionate, loving mode, and like, hey, here's another way of doing things. Can I, you know, are you open to kind of looking at things in a different way, you know? And so, yes, if we, you know, first we have to become humans before we become Krishna conscious humans. Sometimes we become robot devotees, and, you know, we want to become very human devotees. You know, there's human qualities of kindness, consideration, diplomacy, conscientiousness, you know, awareness, understanding, empathy, that, I mean, these are concomitant factors with becoming a devotee, but in our lower stages, I think we need to be mindful of embodying those human qualities, especially if we're going to be effective in reaching others with this transcendental message. So I thank you for making those points. And the other point you made, the first point, is that, yes, we all have this kind of, we're living with the judge in our mind, the judge and the jury, you know, it's judging us. We're not living up to the standard, and, you know, we're beating ourselves up. You know, that negative voice within the mind, this bully within the mind is, yeah, you know, it can be our undoing. And then we can bring that and judge others. If we don't kind of dismantle that and transmute that energy into a sense of loving acceptance of ourselves and our conditioning, then we will bring that kind of harshness to others. And so therefore it's important that we're mindful of that Krishna is not pointing the finger at us. He's just kind of set up a system with laws of nature, and he's always going, hey, but I'm over here. Just kind of depend on me for everything. Just think of me, chant my name, love me. I want a relationship with you for Krishna's sake. I'm not trying to punish you, but hey, these are the rules and you got to follow them. If you don't, what can I do? But so, it requires a kind of a healthy understanding of that. Otherwise, we'll always be beating ourselves up and we'll be miserable, depressed devotees. We all know people like that. And we really have to come to a higher level if we want to be happy humans, happy devotees, and influence others. My 2 cents. Leela, is that all right? Anybody else?
I see another hand raised by Tina.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams. Thank you
Krishna.
so much for such a wonderful class. I really appreciate your speaking style. I feel like you're embodying, for example, Srila Prabhupada, where he's able to speak strongly, truthfully, but also very tactfully and sensitively. I thought you brought up a lot of really great points, and I guess I have 2 comments or food for thought, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I'm less in touch with, I don't say materialist, but those where I have to explain, for example, my diet, where I'm not vegan, but yet I'm vegetarian. I don't eat eggs, but yes, I'll take some dairy. And I always get a lot of questions, why? And you had listed so many great reasons just from Shastra of why, for example, the cow's milk is so nourishing to the body. Just to bring up some points of the pushback that I get, for example, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. So one is even from, if we take a high level, I guess, point of view, where if you look at, say, humans as just even a species, you rarely see, for example, you'll never see a goat drinking the milk of a monkey's, or you'll never see a cow drinking the milk of a giraffe. And so similarly, why, if you say humans as a species should be drinking the milk of another animals, you're never going to see that. So why are humans an exception to that? And do you even prove from, I don't say from an evolutionary standpoint, of why it even makes sense how another animal's or species milk is nourishing to another human's or species body, when from a natural perspective, you're never going to have like a cat drinking a dog's mother's milk. And then similarly, when you take a look at, and this could be an argument of perhaps the industry, but those who even go vegan say, when I take dairy, they break out, there's acne, there's cysts, it just doesn't sit well. And there could be an argument, it could actually just be the industry of having the pus levels that are acceptable, or even the steroids. I'm not sure that's might be causing that. But they're seeing that even from a health perspective, if milk is supposed to be so great for me, how come I'm having all these reactions? And even personally, I'm Asian bodied in this lifetime, so I'm naturally a little bit more lactose intolerant. So how could something that should be applicable to all humans, that we're allergic to it? And of course, nowadays people are allergic to nuts and all of that, which could be for a different reason, but inherently you can say many of the Asian bodied race is naturally lactose intolerant. So if something that's supposed to be good for all humans, how could Asians just be naturally lactose intolerant and not actually take something that's supposed to be so nourishing to the human body? I thought that was about the cow's milk aspect. And I guess my last point, which I want to bring up because Leela Mataji was talking about just kind of the Abrahamic religions. Something that just always really struck me, that I found a little contradictory, and I am, of course, can't completely compare traditions, but if we just take that there's one supreme Lord, and that all faiths and paths stem to bring us back to the Lord, and in one sense there's many truths that are similar across faiths, but maybe they're packaged in a different way or presented in a different way. What I always find very odd is if cow production is such a strong standpoint within our faith, and they're so sacred, we can't eat meat, then why would God allow cows to be on the list of permissible animals to eat? And of course, there's restrictions. If you need to eat meat, there's kosher, there's halal, there's certain practices. So But naturally, I think in the Bible, and I'm not well versed in their scripture, say you can eat bottom feeders, you can't eat pigs, you can't eat animals that eat meat like tigers and lions, but you're able to eat animals that eat vegetables and grass. So naturally, cows are a permissible animal to eat. But it just seems so inherently, if God is God and God loves cows, why would he even allow cows to be on the list of animals that are permissible to eat, even if they're done killed humanely or in a certain way, like kosher or halal? And I'll pause right there. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on those kind of two directions or points. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
So actually, you made you raised 3 points, and so I'll address
That's
each of
okay.
those.
Thank you.
Really excellent points, by the way. Fantastic. So let me let's start with the okay. Let's start with the second point, which is I experience health issues when I eat this miracle food milk. So obviously it can't be a miracle food if I'm feeling horrible and getting acne and, you know, all sorts of things. So that's a great point. You know, a lot of people, I don't do well with milk products either. Prabhupada was very clear, and the Vedas are very clear, but let's just go by Srila Prabhupada because he's the Acharya. Prabhupada said you shouldn't have more than like 1 or 2 cups of milk products a day, and we'll just say 1 cup of milk products a day. And there's a way to take milk products. First of all, there's different types of milk products. In this day and age, the whole atmosphere is contaminated by recombinant by growth hormones that they pump into the cows, which is it's an antibiotic and a growth hormone that we take in our systems. There's the glyphosate in the feed that they feed the animals, which is a super toxic element to the system, causes celiac disease, so many disturbances, all the GMO foods that they feed the animals. So I would say, number one, it's not the fault of the pure milk, but it's the contamination of the environment. So number one, we want to not overdo milk products, take milk products in the right way, and take the ones that are organic and non-GMO. So you want to take non-GMO organic milk products, and top of the line would be from cows that are not going to be slaughtered. And regarding milk, it's very toxic to take cold milk. One takes cold, and it's very toxic to the system to take more than a couple of cups of milk products a day. And it's very toxic to take hard cheeses, except just a little. So I think it's really Prabhupada loved hot milk at night. Hot milk, as I was saying earlier, from the Ayurvedic standpoint, nourishes all the tissues in the body within 24 hours. It's a miracle food. And Prabhupada said that milk nourishes the finer cells of the brain, hot milk, so that we can understand the subtler aspects of spiritual knowledge. So actually, hot milk is necessary to understand spiritual knowledge. It helps. It's not absolutely necessary, but it's helpful to nourish those brain cells, which by which one can understand the subtle aspects of the transcendental philosophy in the transcendental realm. But it has to be taken warm or hot, and mixed with good stuff like honey or ginger or cardamom. And like cardamom, when you put cardamom in hot milk, it reduces the buildup of mucus. So there's certain kind of scientific ways. If you look into Ayurveda, if you take cardamom, ginger with hot milk, it reduces that mucus, which a lot of people have trouble, and I do as well. So when I do those things, like I had hot milk last night, it was wonderful. I put a lot of ginger, turmeric, different things, some cardamom, and I didn't have any issues. But if you overdo it, then you'll have issues. So I would say to do things that are very organic and pure and in the right way, and take it in very, very moderation. And if it's still a problem, then then it's a problem, and you have to be practical. Then it doesn't work for you. But and some races, like you say, perhaps the Asian race is a little more lactose intolerant. So I would just start with the hot milk with these different herbs in it and see how that works. So that's one thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, next point. Why does, the first point you made was, people will say, well, cats don't drink dogs. I mean, dogs don't drink cat's milk or you know, that there's not this cross hybridization of animals that we see mammals drinking milk from other mammals. So it doesn't make any sense that a human would drink from a cow. So my answer to that would be, yes, that's true. But who are we accepting? This comes down to the point of, who do we accept as our authority? Because we have to, I was thinking about this yesterday. Who do we accept as our authority? As devotees and as sane human beings, just like, say, some people are allergic to nuts. I was thinking that we're allergic to nutty people. We should all be allergic to nutty people. But so it's good to be allergic to those kind of nuts. But who do we accept as authority? Basically, the whole world is crazy because they don't have the proper authority. Just like there's the eugenicists, the people with the elite of the elite, the 1% of the 1%. They basically want to kill 90% of the world's population so they can live a peaceful life on the Garden of Eden and their earth, because they feel the world is overpopulated and everybody's just useless eaters and most people should just be killed so we can kind of maintain a balance in the earth. No. They're using their limited authority. Prabhupada said, I was just listening to a lecture this morning, Prabhupada was saying that the earth can maintain unlimited amounts of people. It's due to mismanagement and lack of proper performance of yajnas. So we accept the Vedic authority. In the Vedas, it's stated that the cow is the most important animal, and cow and milk from the cow is the most important food for nourishing the finer tissues of the brain. So it's ultimately, we accept that authority. Just like in the Vedas, we know the example that Prabhupada gives is that it's stated in the Vedas that if you touch the bone or the stool of any animal, it's so contaminated you have to immediately take a shower, take a bath. But if you touch the stool of a cow or the urine of a cow or the bone of a cow, it's purifying. And when tested in the laboratory, cow dung has all antiseptic properties. So it doesn't make any sense from a kind of 3D logic and reason standpoint, but it's fact. When you analyze it in laboratory, cow dung is antiseptic. Cow urine is antiseptic. So although people may not want to accept it, we have to stand by the truth. The Vedas are the ultimate authority. There's a handbook, just like when you get your computer or you get your new phone or you get some type of equipment, there's a guidebook for it. Tells you how to use it. The entire cosmic manifestation comes with a guidebook. It's called the Vedic literatures. Krishna created everything through the agency of Lord Brahma, and he created the manual. If you use the manual, you'll get the most out of it. Otherwise, you're just going to mess things up and cause chaos. So the manual is the Vedas, and that has to be presented to people. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much. Very well said, and that is correct. What is our source of information, and where do we put faith? Thank you so much.
Right. And we have to stand by that. We're devotees of Krishna, so we have to stand by that. And the last point you made was about different animals, about in different scriptures that the cow isn't necessarily protected. And there's the scriptures, and then there's the misuse of the scriptures. So that's what I would say. Just like in the book of Genesis in the Old Testament, which is the original, before the New Testament, and even the Muslim tradition is based on Abraham from the Old Testament, Abrahamic traditions, I believe it's called. So in the Old Testament, there's a verse that says, let every herb-yielding seed and the fruit thereof be meat for man, not flesh and the blood thereof. So this is before the flood and Krishna making different concessions for humanity because they're so lusty. But the verse again is, let every herb-yielding seed, which is vegetarian, things, vegetarian items, grains, fruits, vegetables, let every herb-yielding seed and the fruit thereof be the meat for man, meat meaning the food for man, not flesh and the blood thereof. So God, Krishna, makes it abundantly clear in the Old Testament, what his ultimate desire is. Then he made concessions. Now, in the Jewish tradition in which I was raised, they really, just because they're so lusty to eat meat, they go, okay, we're not supposed to eat the blood thereof. So what are we going to do? We're going to kill the cow. We're going to drain the blood out. It's insane, really, if you really think about it. First of all, you can never drain all the blood. There's always going to be some remnants. They say, oh, now that we've drained all the blood out, now it's kosher. If you really analyze it, it's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. So they can eat the meat of the cow, they drain the blood out. And in the Muslim tradition, they have, every year Muslims around the world slaughter an animal, a goat, a sheep, a cow, or a camel, to reflect Prophet Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son Ishmael for the sake of God. This is, in my mind, it's concoction. Okay, because Abraham was going to sacrifice his son, so now we're going to sacrifice something dear, an animal. But in Kali Yuga, that's not the scripture that we have to really go by is the Vedic literature. It gives the complete picture. And even in the Bible, it states that not the flesh or the blood thereof. So that's the original instruction. So, and then what I tell people is like, hey, let's bring it down to like practicalities. To slaughter an innocent creature and cause immense suffering to that creature, does that feel compassionate to you? Or would it feel more compassionate if you just ate things from the vegetable and fruit kingdom and grains that you didn't have to cause intense suffering to another living being? What feels more compassionate to you? And 99% of people go, yeah, it feels more. I mean, do you have a dog? Do you have a cat? Would you like to pick up your dog and slit its throat? Would you do that? No, you wouldn't. So why do it to a cow? So anyway, but as far as the scriptures, that's my understanding, that they're kind of gross misinterpretations of scripture or concessions in scripture. Just like in the Vedas, it's given the concession that you can eat the goat and slaughter the goat on the dark moon night and offer to the goddess Kali. So there are some concessions there. But in the ultimate issue, the stricture is don't cause pain to other living entities, especially the cow. Does that answer your questions, Prabhu? Is that, did I help you with that?
Yes, thank you so much. And I really love all your references. And I guess just to, I know there was maybe no direct answer, but still at the core, it's interesting. I love that you referenced the original scripture, which is, you said it so eloquently, it's probably from scripture, how let the herbs of the earth and its fruit feed the meat for man, meaning plants. But it's interesting that you said later on God has to make concessions. But it's still mind-boggling to me, unless it's some misinterpretation or somehow written incorrectly, why cows would still even be on that list of permissible. It should have been just like, I guess, the pigs or the bottom feeders, like it cannot be touched. And so that's the one part that still, if God had to make concessions, he wouldn't, in my mind, allow the animal that he finds so sacred and loves so much, Govinda, as a lover of cows, even be on that list. And so maybe there's no answer to that, or it just traces back that maybe it was, and maybe it somehow made it to the list. I'm not sure. But that still is, in the concessions, why God would allow that, but maybe there is no proper answer for that. Thank you so much.
Can you, I'm not familiar, and excuse me, but I'm not familiar with the list that you're talking about. Can you help me understand where that's coming from?
Sure. So this is actually just coming from conversations from my Christian friends and Muslim friends who are very well versed in their scripture. And when I've had conversations about being vegetarian, they've brought this up. So I don't have the direct references, but I'm pretty sure they took out the Bible and the Quran and actually read it out during our discussion. But I think Jesus supposedly made that list of what is permissible and not permissible, and on that list it was no bottom feeders and I think that the swine as well. And then the Quran also had said no swine, and they listed out why, the bottom feeders, and then they added animals that eat meat. So the Muslims aren't allowed to eat, say, lions or tigers, and maybe conceptually you can think about what you eat. You are what you eat. So if you eat meat that eats more meat, it's maybe not great, and again, all the aggression, but it's okay to eat animals that eat grass or plants, and that's somehow okay. And so they list what is more so not permissible, and just cow is not on there, and cows are grass eating animals or beings, so it's on that permissible list. So just naturally, if you think God had, and you so nicely cited, what is the original commandment in one sense, but then God later had to make concessions, but why wouldn't he have included anything around cows?
So good points. I am not familiar that Jesus, that Yeshua, Lord Yeshua, had a list like that. I would like to see the reference for that. And I would also love to see, I would love to see the references for those, because I know that obviously in the Judeo-Christian and Muslim tradition, the animal slaughter is allowed, but to me, it's clearly it's a very low type of concession for their lusty desires of the tongue. And if you look at it from the standpoint of compassion, to cause massive pain and suffering to an innocent creature, when you can eat and flourish and be healthy without that, is just gross ignorance of the finer qualities of humanity, which is compassion. So I would just rest on that, but I would love to see I'm not familiar with the references as far as Lord Jesus saying that. He did over and over again, as Prabhupada state, thou shalt not kill. So there was no evidence anywhere in the Bible of Jesus eating meat. There was the fish reference, but over and over again, Lord Jesus said, thou shalt not kill. And Prabhupada said, there you go, thou shalt not kill. Why you are killing? Why you are killing? He's telling the Christians, why you are killing? You are not real Christian. Why you are killing? So we represent the highest form of spiritual religious expression, and the pinnacle of that is compassion and empathy. If we want to embody compassion and empathy, then the Vedas has the highest presentation, the highest realization. And you can say, that's fine, you want to do that, great. But I choose to follow a path that represents the highest form of compassion.
Thank you so very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your questions. Really, really great. And I definitely can empathize with you dealing with these people and their, so many people and their different perspectives. It's a challenging terrain to navigate. But, the more we kind of learn and be strong in our convictions, the more we can present this and hold our own without judging others.
Thank you so much. And thank you for facilitating this wonderful discussion and all your wonderful answers and points. I really appreciate it. It was so enlightening. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
It's Prabhupada's mercy. I'm just trying to serve and follow Srila Prabhupada. Anybody else?
Thank you so much, Pro, for an amazing class. I'm not sure if there is some background disturbance from my side. I'm sorry. I really like the points that the whole discussion was really, really insightful. And also, these are not topics generally very easily discussed among devotees. So it's refreshing to see you're willing to facilitate this discussion on difficult topics. One thing I wanted to just add, nothing in specific to anything, just like that in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says there are 3 types of food. So there is also he especially counts the meat as untouchable food in the section of mode of darkness. He exactly doesn't say it's eatable or not eatable. He just says these are foods liked by people in the mode of darkness. So one thing is religion, but we also see in each religion there is a vegetarian section, there is a, even among Christians or Jewish, all the religions. Satyaraj Prabhu wrote an amazing book where he quoted how all these religions has a section of vegetarians among them also. So it also comes down to the mode of darkness that people are in, which results in these kind of things also.
Excellent point, Prabhu. It's like just like Krishna describes in the in the divisions of faith, that there, and the also in the three modes of material nature and whatnot, that there are different types of faith, different types of eating, different types of faith, different types of action in the three different modes. So yes, and so what, that we could take that a step further and say there are different religions in different modes of nature. So we could say that a religion that has as part of its core tenets slaughtering an animal for sacrifice and eating the animal and enjoying that is a religion that is tinged by the mode of ignorance. And I really don't want to be part of a religion that's tinged in the mode of ignorance, personally, because I want my consciousness to be elevated to goodness, because in goodness, what happens, Krishna describes, in the mode of goodness, all the 9 gates of the body are illumined with knowledge. And the symptom of the mode of goodness is happiness. So I want to be happy. I want to be a person that has some wisdom. And so therefore, I'm going to choose the path of the higher path. Makes more sense. Thank you for that point, Prabhu.
Thank you so much for your time and wonderful discussion. Thank you for everyone who participated and facilitated.
Yeah, thanks so much. Really awesome. I loved the discussion. I loved all the questions. Just love seeing everybody, and I'm very, very honored. Hare Krishna.
His grace, Badarayan Prabhu ki jai.